See you there. Welcome to Cover. My name is Emily Hynum, and today we'll be discussing Mem Fox's Reading Magic, why reading aloud to our children will change their lives forever. So, today we'll go through the main arguments in this book. She calls them secrets. We'll discuss successful strategies, and finally we'll think critically about her emergent literacy techniques. So, let's dig right in. Mem Fox says, as we share the viewpoints, rhymes, and rhythms, the pain and comfort, the hopes and fears, and the big issues of life that we encounter together in the pages of a book, we connect through the minds and hearts of our children and bond closely in a secret society associated with the books we share. So, first we'll get into decoding, and they call this print. We might need a marker for this. And in our print, we talk about basically how the squiggles on the page are formulated to make meaning out of the words that we create. So she gives this great story in her book about environmental print, and basically she talks about how there's a little 2-year-old boy in her home country of Australia who drives by a bank every day in his car seat. His mom's up front, and he eventually asks his mom, what does that sign say? She says, it says Commonwealth, and every time they go by the bank, the word Commonwealth comes out of his mouth as he sees the sign. And as we go on, they could be following along behind a bus. There's an advertisement for the bank on the back of the bus, and the kid says Commonwealth. And his mom is just amazed. She's like, I didn't realize that he knew that word. And she thought, well, you know, it's probably just the logo that he recognizes. But then later in the newspaper, he sees the word Commonwealth. Oh, hello. He sees the word Commonwealth and is able to decode that to the same word as he saw on the bank sign at 2 years old. So our first secret to literacy is print. So Mem has something to say about that. She says, if we want our children to learn how to read anything, yet alone read more diverse, or more difficult material, it helps immeasurably if we can give them as much experience of print as possible. Okay, our second secret is language. And with language, Mem herself has written several books and uses a lot of rhythm, rhyme, and repetition in her books. And she thinks that eventually that will help her readers appreciate poetry and song more. And she also really encourages reading difficult material, maybe more difficult than what's normal for that age group. So she gives 2 great examples of this. Number 1, she had a 6th grade teacher friend who read Les Mis to her 6th grade class, and instead of being overwhelmed by that difficult material, they were just wrapped up in the drama, and they were able to learn and appreciate all kinds of new vocabulary through that. She also talks about a 6-year-old who was the son of her doctor, and he at 6 years old read all the Harry Potter books, over 500 pages per book, and was able to appreciate that and really be engaged in that. So here's what she has to say, here's what Mem has to say about language. She says, children who have been read aloud to regularly expect and make sense of print. They know about rhythm and rhyme and repetition. They know how real stories work, which makes it easier for them to read real stories. And the final secret is that of understanding. And I think of this one as a feedback loop, that books give life experience through their pages, but the life experience in real life enriches books as well for the readers. So it's thought that as as readers experience worldviews that are different than their own, they're able to experience empathy through books, which I thought was really fascinating. And then when all three of those secrets discussed just now come together, the reader is able to really increase their fluency and their appreciation of literacy. So here's what Mem has to say about when those three secrets come together. It stands to reason that if we're able to make children happier and brighter by reading out loud to them, the well-being of the entire country will ramp up a notch. Children will realize that listening to stories is the purest heaven, and understand that books are filled with delights, facts, fun, and food for thought. Okay, so Mem gives some strategies as well, and there's hundreds of these strategies in the book, but I just picked a few of my favorites that I thought were very interesting. So the first strategy is rhythm and rhyme. So Mem says that if young readers, especially those who can't read yet, are able to anticipate the phrases that come after, their self-confidence really increases through that. She also discusses whole stories and how that is a very important part of the sentiment behind literacy. That in our classrooms, it's normally taught the complete opposite, that we start with sounds, go to letters, words, sentences, and then to whole stories. But Mem says we should start with whole stories, then go to words, letters, and sounds. And here's what she has to say about that. Stories first takes care of the essential attitude problem. Children who have been endlessly entertained by wonderful stories have a joyful attitude towards learning to read. Okay, next she says that students who, even if they don't know how to write, they should start with squiggles, that they can write on the page, and then eventually they'll get the first letter and then phonetic spelling. Finally, she says, no school readers. Those Jack and Jill books that are so common in schools have no plot, make no sense, and shouldn't have a place in our literacy discussions. She says pressure is absolutely forbidden, that tension should never interfere with reading and learning equation. So that brings us to a question. Should we buy into this strategy? Should we be thinking about emergent literacy? Are we too academic with the way that we train students? And should we let students explore in their own interest? So I think what Mem is trying to say with this is that she is trying to create a culture of literacy. That starting from a very young age, students should be stimulated and engaged with literacy. And the strategies that she's giving are often preemptive, that we're able to see students do better when they have these strategies from the very beginning of their lives. They're really hard to implement for students that may have not grown up with this culture of literacy. So I took some strategies for students that may have not grown up with a culture of literacy. First of all, I should be very excited about reading. That if I'm not excited about reading, there's no way that my students will be excited about reading. And if it gets to the point where I'm bored, it's time to put the book away, because they're not going to get anything out of it if I'm not. Finally, I said I should take turns reading with my students. That by switching off with them, they still get the practice of reading, but they also get to see it modeled, and it keeps the story moving and keeps them engaged. And basically what I took out of this is that Mem's exuberance creates engaged and enchanted readers for the next generation, and that exuberance is something that I can take away as well. So finally, I'll end with a quote. Mem says, "The fire of literacy is created by the emotional sparks between a child, a book, and the person reading. It isn't achieved by the book alone, nor by the child alone, nor by the adult who's reading out loud. It's the relationship winding between all three, bringing them together in easy harmony." Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.